Hey y'all, welcome back to JayeRated. So today I'm covering episodes 14 and 15 of Love Island Games Season 2. I hope you got your snacks ready and your cups are full. Let's get into it. So at the start of episode 14, we have the Power Rangers, aka Johnny and Gabby's safe team. Along with Johnny and Gabby, we had Ty, Toby, Lucinda, and Isaiah. Um, and they all had to decide who they were going to give the kiss of death or the kiss of duel to. And they decided to give it to Josh and Kendall and Garbi and Nicola. So I will say, I did not want to see either Garbi or Nicola go into a duel. Just because I like them both. I like them both. I did not want to see either of them leave us, but we'll get to that later. So the girls' reactions, Nicola was locked in, but that's been pretty consistent for her. She hasn't been in a duel just yet, but she's been in challenges, so she has proven herself to be a competitor. She has not shied away from any of the tasks that she's kind of been put up with. And watching her and Justine practice for the duel was the cutest thing. It was very entertaining to watch as well. And then we saw Andrea giving Josh, a little pep talk and letting him know, like, I think you've got this. And you can see their connection furthering in this episode, which has not been easy for them considering how many times their couple has been split up this season. So, my initial thoughts before the duel started, that Josh was going to take Kendall out, and that Nicola and Garbi would be very evenly matched. Okay, so I will say this duel was probably my least favorite. So the Islanders were on opposite sides of the ring, and they had to basically keep these weighted balls out of their side of the ring. Whomever had the most at the end of the round lost. And so it was the best out of 3 rounds. So if you won two, you're the winner, obviously. The first round, Garbi actually dominated. And I was cheering for my girl Nicola because I love her. She has been such a lovable character this season. Garbi as well. I like them both. But Garbi, she came out the first round and she did win it. I really feel like second round, Nicola was getting her bearings. She saw what Garbi's strategy was and she was starting to adjust to that. But then literally, boom, my girl gets smacked in the face with a weighted ball and goes down. So what are you thinking, right? You're like, okay, is she okay? That's our first thought. Second is she going to be able to keep going? She was actually, so the medics run in, they check on her, looks like they're moving her head around, asking her questions, um, you know, just to see if she's okay, make sure that she didn't black out or anything. And you could hear her saying, like, hey, I want to keep going, I want to keep playing. But they basically called it for her. And so Garbi wins by default, which I hated, if I'm being completely honest. It was, I mean, I guess good in a sense because Garbi didn't go, but we lost Nicola in the process. And also, she didn't really get to go out on her own. I feel like some of the duels that they created, like the similar situation between Johnny and Chris, their duel. I'm not sure if they actually like tested these out themselves or tried, did a trial run for some of these challenges or duels themselves. But it seems like they should have, just to kind of see like what the risk would be. Obviously, this was something that they probably could have never expected. But at the same time, you have, I mean, just think about the women throwing the weighted balls. Like, yes, we are strong, but we are not Shira. Okay, like, why not make it a balancing or like the jousting duel? something similar to that. I just thought that it wasn't a very well thought out duel. And because of that, Nicola had to bear the brunt of it. And I think what sucked even more was she didn't even get to tell the Islanders bye. It put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not gonna lie. So then we had Kendall and Josh. Theirs was very intense. I will say Josh came out of it literally full speed ahead in the first round, and he was able to take the win. I think Kendall readjusted in that second round, and they were actually neck and neck, and at some point fighting over the same ball to stay out of their ring. And then Josh ended up pulling it off literally at the last second, which eliminated Kendall. And it was a bittersweet sweet moment to see. Kendall went out with a fight for sure. He did not go down easy, and I'm glad he went out with his head high. He even like choked up a little bit when he was trying to give his speech toward the end. He wasn't expecting to be going out this way indefinitely without Garbi. She looked like she was a little sad as well. But the boys accomplished what they wanted to. I think they wanted Josh out. But Kendall was also a strong competitor, so they kind of won either way. And so with that, I would J-rate episode 14 a 7 out of 10. Honestly, I think the reason I rated a 7 out of 10 is just because of how I feel like we didn't get a resolution with Nicola. She didn't get to tell the Islanders bye. We didn't get to see her pack any of her things. I guess I understand from like a risk standpoint, a liability standpoint for Love Island, they had to just take her out of the game completely and not let her continue on. But it's like if that's even gonna have to be a thing, like why are we designing the games in this way? Other than that, it was still entertaining to watch. And so let's go into episode 15. I'm going to call this one Viva Las Vegas. And honestly, as I was watching this, I was thinking, what the heck is going on between these walls of my villa? Or whatever Ronald Isley says, okay? Because there was a lot going on this episode. So they start the episode by raising a glass to Nicola and Kendall, who left them in the last episode. But then they get straight to business with the strategy talk. The Power Rangers reconvene to have a little meeting, but exclude Andrea, more specifically Johnny, because she's coupled up with Josh. And basically, they don't want her bringing the tea back to him. So obviously that made her upset, and it probably would have made me feel some type of way as well, especially considering she was a part of the Power Squad, and is now being excluded because of her boo. And so we saw she and Josh have a conversation, and basically they were just saying they want to get power couples so that they can throw Tyreek into a duel because he hasn't had one yet. But he has performed well in all of the challenges. So I feel like they're kind of sleeping on him a little bit. We see Lucinda and Garbi crying a little bit and comforting each other because Kendall left. And it was a cute little moment. Then pan over to the kitchen and we see Isaiah and Josh getting into it because Josh is basically saying Isaiah has not had his back. They're friends on the outside, so he expected more from him. And Isaiah is basically just saying, like, it's BS. Isaiah is aligning himself with whomever is supporting him in the game. And he feels like he has done that. And I agree with him, honestly. Now, let's talk about Sydney and Toby real quick. I don't see them lasting outside the villa, okay? I mean, not only is he from the UK and she's in the US, but I just don't see a romantic connection sparking between them. You can see that in their conversations. And then he goes forth to have a conversation with Tyreek in the sauna, saying that he doesn't think Sydney's going to be a good fit for his game. She's just there to serve looks. But if she's trying to serve in a duel, we don't know. And so then he thinks, well, Garby's single now. She's a strong competitor in this game. Why not try to couple up with her? So then what does he do? He goes to try to have that conversation with Garby. Garby, she really played it cool. She was like a sponge, actually. She soaked all the information up. She gave very little away. And then ended the conversation. What did she do after that? She goes on to Casey, who's apparently friends with Kendall, didn't know that, locks in their couple, and then spills the tea to him. So then she cooks up the idea that she's going to then tell Sydney the tea so that she could just disband the whole Power Ranger group altogether. Well, honestly, I thought it was a great plan, but I don't think it's enough to get them into the finale. And then we get into the challenge, baby. Viva Las Vegas. So the Islanders are in their couples and they play a series of games to try to make the other couples vulnerable, basically. So before they go out to start the challenge, the boys receive a text, basically letting them know this is their last chance to recouple. Whomever they want to recouple with, they must sit at the table of that girl. And so you see all of the girls come out. They're looking great, gorgeous. They sit down. And then you see the guys come out and they start to take their seats one by one. And you see Toby inching over to Garby's table. And then you see Casey coming over as well because he and she have already made, a deal and come to an understanding that they're going to couple up. And he's like, Toby, what are you doing? They start literally fighting over the chair, like pulling it back and forth between each other. It was crazy. And then imagine Sydney looking like, what the hell is going on, but also embarrassed as heck. And honestly, I felt a little bit of secondhand embarrassment for the girl. It was a little hard to watch. Garby basically cussed Toby out and told him to GTF, like, go on, sir, I don't want you. And so basically Sydney just had to take him back. And so then they get into a heated argument at the table, saying, like, you embarrassed me. And honestly, I could understand why, because he didn't have a conversation with her about it at all. It was just, he was just going based off of what he thought was going to be best for his game. I respect the fact that he wanted to recouple with someone that he thought was going to be a stronger competitor, but I don't rate how he went about it. And honestly, it did make me feel terrible for Sydney. So the first game was called Tilting Tables. So the Islanders had 3 balls that they could drop into any of the other Islanders' boxes that they wanted to make vulnerable. And they did that on a tilting table. So they would put the ball on and kind of maneuver the table around to get it into whomever's box they wanted it to. So Toby and Sydney went first. And since they were already kind of on shaky ground, they wanted to try to like convene with each other off to the side to decide who they were going to target, basically. And she even got emotional then. So you could tell that she really did take it hard, how he went about the situation. But ultimately, they decided to target Garby and Casey first, which left Garby feeling pressed because she was like, I mean, I just gave you a heads up about like what Toby was trying to do. Why would you then turn around and target me? Like, you're supposed to have my back. I'm supposed to have your back in here. So then I believe Sydney felt guilty and they changed their answer. And I believe they went for Lucinda and Isaiah next. So then Lucinda and Isaiah come up, and they go for Garby and Casey and get all 3 balls into their box. So since Garby felt some type of way, Garby and Casey then went for Toby and Sydney with all three of their balls. They ended up missing one. Sydney thought that was karma. Josh and Andrea were next, and they went for Toby and Sydney. Then we had Johnny and Gabby, who went for Garbi and Casey, which I feel like was the obvious choice at this point. And then Justine and Tyreek followed suit with going for Garbi and Casey. So at the end of that round, Garbi and Casey were made vulnerable. So then we go into game 2, which was shuffleboard with a twist, a martini toss. Now this game right here was disrespectful. Okay? So basically, the Islanders get this puck that they can slide across the shuffleboard that has 3 zones, 1, 2, and 3. Wherever they land the puck, that's the point that they get. And then they get 2 martini glasses filled with a liquid per point to toss into the Islanders' face that they want to make vulnerable. Like, what do y'all think of this? Like, it's just savage, honestly, and messy. So Garbi and Casey went first. They scored 1, and so they went for Toby and Sydney. Josh and Andrea went next. They went for Toby and Sydney as well. Lucinda and Isaiah scored 2 points when they went, and they went for Johnny and Gabby both times, which I was honestly surprised by because I thought they had an alliance. And I think Johnny and Gabby were also shocked. But, Lucinda basically explained, everybody else in here are my friends and you guys aren't. So this is why you're getting the martini to the face. And Gabby was actually shocked by that because she said that she thought her and Lucinda were closer. I was surprised that Lucinda said that Andrea was her best friend in the villa. I'm like, when did this happen? Did I miss this? I know I've been watching all season. But anyway, they got 4 martinis to the face. So then Johnny and Gabby went, and they went for Josh and Andrea, which I was not surprised by because they are actively trying to get them out of the villa. They see them as a huge threat, rightfully so. And so they're trying their best to get them out. And then we had last Justine and Ty, who's in an alliance with Gabby and Johnny, as well as Toby, who, of course, they go for Josh and Andrea as well. I will say, Josh, he tried to say that Justine does whatever Tyreek says, and that basically she's not making any decisions for herself. But I mean, I don't think that's true. Like, yes, they are friends, but he shouldn't take things so personally. 1, this is a game, 2, y'all are strong competitors. So if I have the chance to get you out, I'm gonna take it. So I agree with her logic. And so by the end of the shuffleboard martini toss challenge, Josh and Andrea were made vulnerable. So then we have the card game, which we believe to be the last game of the night and of this lengthy but fun and messy challenge. So basically, the Islanders go up in their couples to pick cards that are face down up against a heart. The goal is for them to basically not pick the Joker. If they pick the Joker, it's going to wipe out their whole hand. But if they don't, however many cards they choose to pick up and turn around that's not the Joker, they can use those amount of cards to vote another couple vulnerable. That was hard for me to say for some reason. But anyway, so first we had Garbi and Casey. I will say this game was actually, I feel like, one of the most intense. Like, maybe just because it had the most suspense behind it. Garbi and Casey went up first, and everybody was kind of like on the edge of their seats, just kind of seeing how it would play out. They ended up getting 4 cards before they said no more. And so next we had Toby and Sydney go. And guess what? Toby pulls the Joker. Which was kind of fitting, was how he was acting. So then we had Josh and Andrea go, and they picked 4 cards. Next to follow was Justine and Tyreek, who also picked 4 cards. Then we had Johnny and Gabby, who picked the Joker. Johnny did, more specifically. Funny, right? And then lastly, we had Lucinda and Isaiah, who picked 5 cards. So then all the couples sat down at their tables to deliberate and decide which couples they wanted to give their cards to. I will say most of the couples looked like they were in agreement with each other. The only couple that didn't was Justine and Tyreek. I don't think Justine was happy with the way Ty went about the votes for them. But I think she ultimately just kind of let him have it. And so Garbi and Casey went for Toby and Sydney. Toby and Sydney didn't get any cards, so they couldn't pick anyone. Josh and Andrea, they also went for Toby and Sydney. So because Ty and Justine were not really in agreement, he split the votes up kind of weird. He went for Isaiah and Lucinda once, but with the other 3 cards, went for Johnny and Gabby, which blew my mind because I'm like, what are you doing? Aren't y'all supposed to be in an alliance with each other? He basically says later on that his reasoning for doing so was because he thought it was going to give Toby an even chance at not being eliminated, I guess. But it just didn't make sense, honestly. Johnny and Gabby didn't get to pick anyone because they pulled a Joker. And then Lucinda and Isaiah ended up going for Johnny and Gabby each time. So they got 5 cards. And so by the end of that round, both Johnny and Gabby and Toby and Sydney's, they were even. They were tied up. And so ultimately, one person from each couple chose from the remaining cards to decide who would be vulnerable and who would be safe. Whomever picked the highest card would be safe. Whomever picked the lower card obviously would be vulnerable. So Sydney went up first and she picked a 7. And then Johnny went up and he picked a 6, literally right under. So that left them vulnerable. And so I'm thinking it's going to end here. But no, we get a surprise appearance from my girl, Ariana, and she's looking good as usual. And so Ariana gives us our final twist of the night. They're playing one last game of chance with Russian roulette. So basically, of the vulnerable couples, Josh and Andrea, Garbi and Casey, and Johnny and Gabby, they were given a choice. Either spin the roulette wheel with your fellow safe islanders on it and let them decide who they want to send home, basically, or keep. Or take a chance on a different roulette wheel that's just white and black, and let it decide if you're going to go home. And so both Gabby and Johnny and Josh and Andrea decide we're going to let the Islanders pick. Johnny's, mindset was, if one of y'all can stand up and tell me that y'all don't want me to be here, then fair play to you. It is what it is. But I'd rather go out like that. And I think Josh and Andrea, though they are competition, I think they knew that the Islanders would potentially have their back and keep them there. But since Casey and Garbi said they wanted to spin the other roulette wheel to let it decide their fate, basically, if it landed on a certain color, they would either be able to stay and one of the other Islanders be dumped, or they would be dumped. So, red is safe, white is dumped. Ariana picks up the ball, spins the thing as fast as she can and drops it, and literally everyone huddles in to see, okay, what's going to be the decision? We need to know. Ariana even kind of turns away a bit, saying, I can't watch. And then, boom, cliffhanger. That's where they ended it. Y'all, when I tell you, I J rate this episode a 10 out of 10. This was the best episode of Love Island Games I have seen. All right, in their 2 seasons, I could probably go as far to say one of the best episodes of Love Island that I've seen in general. No notes, no notes, honey. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was actually on the edge of my seat at the end. Okay, I loved it. That's the end, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was it as mind blowing to you as it was for me? Did you think some of the challenges were a little too far? Okay, a little too messy? Let me know. All right. Until next time, I hope you keep your snacks ready and your cups full.